Okay, I'm Alex.
I'm Connie.
Welcome back to the Faria Files. Today we're going to be talking about our experience living overseas.
It was an amazing experience, and I think I'm going to start with talking about how we got there in the first place. So my husband works for the government, and he really wanted to take a position overseas. And he brought it up a few times over the years, and I was always like, I don't know. Like, the kids are little. I don't know about going, and I'm really comfortable here.
What year did it first come up?
Oh, I mean, like years ago. So
Well, I know,
Dad
but-
used to be in the military, and he lived in Germany for 2 years before we got married.
Okay, yeah,
So
it's
he
like the
lived
90s.
overseas, right? And so even in the 2000s, even in like the earlier 2000s when you guys were little, even before like Cameron was born, and we just had to two of you guys, like it would just come up. He would just kind of throw it out, and I wasn't super keen on it.
Yeah.
So we've now lived in our small little city of Ferndale, and at the time it was about 8,000 people, and we'd lived here for 12 years. And Dad brings it up again about living overseas, and I was trying to be open-minded, but very nervous about the idea. So I didn't even have a passport. I'd never been anywhere outside of North America. And so I said, well, okay, I'm open to it, but like only if we go somewhere where English is the main language. You know, so let's like start with that. So he's looking around overseas, and I thought, oh, maybe just Europe. You know, in my head, in my sheltered little head, I thought if we're gonna go anywhere overseas, like the world is a big crazy place, and like let's just focus on a small area. So he comes home one day and he says, what do you think about Austria?
Vienna, yeah, I remember
And I was
that.
like, okay, well, that's like a central area. There's so much we could visit from there. That would be really cool. So I'm not really sure how it all works at the time. So he says, I'm going to look into Vienna. And I was like, awesome. And my typical mode, I like obsess, and I'm looking at houses in Vienna, and I'm looking at the schools and like where we live and what would it be like. And needless to say, he didn't get the job there. So then he comes home, you know, however long later, a week or a couple weeks later. And he's like, what about London? I was like, London would be awesome. They speak English there.
Oh, really?
I'm familiar with London. I've heard of that place. We could totally do that.
Yeah.
So again, I go into obsession mode. I'm looking up schools, and I'm looking up houses, and what would life be like, and blah, blah, blah. And needless to say, he doesn't get that job. And then he applies again to London, and he doesn't get that job.
And wasn't Paris one of them as well?
So
I'm not sure.
that was later on.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was like, okay. So then he comes home one day, and he's like, all right, Connie, I need you to be open-minded. And anytime somebody says that, you like brace yourself, right? Because you know they're going to say something.
Especially you, because you're crazy.
Okay, I'm not crazy. I'm a lot more open-minded than I used to be, thankfully, from
Yes.
living overseas.
Yes.
So anyway, so I said, okay, well, look, what are you talking about? And he's like,
Go to
what?
the Middle East.
And he's like, what do you think about moving to Abu Dhabi? And at the time, I had never heard of it. Or
Because there's what, 2010?
yeah,
Right?
right,
So it's like-
right. And so I was like, I don't even know where that is.
Yeah.
And he said, it's in the Middle East. And in my little closed-minded way at the time, I was like, oh my
Osama bin
God.
Laden, like-
I was like, I don't want to move to the Middle East. Like, I thought we were going to move to London. And so he's like, it's supposed to be a really good post. It's supposed to be really good there. It's not, it's a little more westernized. Just look into it and have an open mind. I was like, okay, fine. So I started reading up on it, looking into it, and a lot of stuff I could read online actually was really positive. And it talked about how there was a lot of Americans there. A lot of people did speak English, you know, and it was a very comfortable life there. But sometimes reading things online doesn't always translate to reality, right? If I read a description and I read a whole blog post, or I read something that somebody says, that's great, and I'm not devaluing what they're saying, but I don't know them. So what they could think is good, if I don't know them, you know, it's hard to know how accurate that is. So I talked to this friend of mine, and her husband was from that area, and in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, which Abu Dhabi is part of, and Dubai is part of. There's 7 different Emirates. So Abu Dhabi's an Emirate, Dubai's an Emirate, and then there's a bunch of other ones. And he had grown up in that area, and she would go back and visit Dubai every couple of years. And she
Wait,
was
who was
telling me,
this?
my friend Melissa.
Okay.
So, and she was telling me how great it was there, how clean everything was there, how clean the bathrooms were, you know, how nice it is there. Like if she had the chance back then, you know, she said that she would totally live there. So I was like, okay, so this is somebody I know and somebody I trust and somebody who's a friend of mine, and they're saying the same kinds of things I'm reading online. So I was like, okay. So needless to say, he applies and he ends up getting the job there. And the process takes close to a year because he's going to be working at the embassy, and we had to go through all these background checks and get diplomatic passports, and it was a really lengthy process. And he ended up moving there before we did, and so I had to pack up a whole house on my own.
Wait, he moved there like the beginning of summer, right? He was just there.
Yeah,
for
he moved there in
months.
June, and we were going to move in
Yeah.
August. So I had to pack up the house. I mean, it was hiring people, but still handling all that. And I had 3 kids at home. The youngest was 2, and you guys were
10.
like
We moved there.
7 and 9, or 8 and 10.
I was 10 because we moved there like a week
right before your
I turned
birthday.
11.
Right before your birthday. So you guys were 8 and 10, and I had a 2-year-old. So I had to deal with all that, and then we lived in a hotel for like 10 days in Bellingham, and then I flew with you guys to New York to visit family for like a week.
Yeah, we're there for a little bit.
And then flew from New York to Abu Dhabi. It's like 16-hour flights with like 3 kids. Okay. This is also when I had my first crazy panic attack. But that's, I'm digressing.
Out of all your panic attacks, that's the one I remember the least, to be honest.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You were like in the car when it happened.
Yeah, I know. You were bringing us back from school. That's what Jacob always says.
Yeah, but
and then we ended up in the hospital. Literally, like, do not remember that for the life of me.
I know it's like a slight digression because we are going to talk about Abu Dhabi and our amazing, amazing, amazing time living there. But I'm just going to talk about this panic attack really quick. Okay. So I am driving to school to pick up the kids, and I have a 2-year-old in the car at the time, my 2-year-old, and I'm picking up my 8 and 10-year-old, and then I'm picking up the other kids that I carpool. So on my way driving to school, I have like this little itch right on my like on my chest or my neck area, whatever. And I was like, oh, it's a little itchy, whatever. And I look in the mirror, and there's a little bump, like maybe it's a bug bite. I didn't think much of it, and I was like, God, it's still itchy. And I look again, and it's getting bigger. So I was like, oh, it's a hive and it's spreading. And at this time, Alex had food allergies, and he would go into anaphylactic shock. And if he had a bad reaction, he could go in anaphylactic shock, but he would get really bad hives if he was exposed. And I connected hives with allergic reactions and a precursor to anaphylactic shock and then dying, right? So anyway, so I have this itch, and I look, and it's getting a little bigger. And I was like, oh my God, I'm clearly really close to going in anaphylactic shock. I know it's crazy. This is just how my brain's working at the time. It's like 2011.
The Chevrolet Traverse we had, right?
I might. Yeah, I was in the
I
Traverse.
remember,
okay.
Yeah, because
So it's like I pull in and to the little carpool lane, and I look, and it's now getting bigger, and I get all these kids in my car. There's like 5 kids in the car, ranging from 2 to 10. And as I'm pulling out of the carpool lane, I was like, I think my throat's closing up because I'm going in anaphylactic shock, because that's what happens when you go in anaphylactic shock. Okay, so I'm driving. So I call Brian, I Bluetooth in my car, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going anaphylactic shock. And he's like, well, you're not allergic to anything. And I said, I know, but I think it's happening. I have this hive. And he's like, I think it sounds like you're having a panic attack. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think I'm going to die. So I said, I'm going to go to the hospital, because that's where you go when you think you're going to die. So I have all 5 of these kids, and I pull into the ER. I must have called my mom at some point, and she was teaching at Assumption at private school. It must have been the end of the day. Oh, that's where I was picking up the kids from. Wait, was that the same incident? Anyway, I called my mom, and I called Jill, because that was the mom of the kids that I had in the car. And God bless her, she was great, good friend. So I remember getting to the hospital. Some of it's a little foggy. I remember going in, I'm kind of hyperventilating, and I'm freaking out. And I have 5 little kids in their little Catholic school uniforms, coming in after me and in the ER. And I'm crying. I'm just a mess. And I was like, I think I'm going in anaphylactic shock, or maybe I'm in a panic attack. I don't know what's going on. So they
spot on reaction, imitation right there.
Somebody the kids watched themselves in the waiting room. I don't even
guarantee
know.
I was on my DS. Like, I don't remember that for the life of me.
You had a 2-year-old with you? I don't know. The kids are with them, and they take me into the triage room, and they're taking my temperature and my blood pressure and stuff. And I remember the nurse turning to me and saying, it could possibly be an anxiety attack, panic attack. Or is there anything that you are stressed about in your life right now? And that's when I completely melt down, and I went, oh my God, I'm moving to the Middle East, and didn't realize how stressed I was about that whole thing that was happening to us until I think at that moment in the ER when I'm in this total mess. So I realized I was a little stressed out and freaked out about the whole situation. So they gave me a Xanax, which I've never had before, and I think they gave me a half of one. And I didn't want to take it. I don't like taking medication because I'm always afraid I'm gonna have a reaction. So they gave me half of one, and so what it does is it's trying to calm you down. And at the moment, I'm totally amped up in this panic attack. So I'm taking this pill that's trying to calm me, and my body is trying to freak out. So it feels like this weird battle of wills in my body. Needless to say, I said that a lot. Anyway, I didn't like it. So, but it did kind of take the edge off. And then they prescribed me some that I never had to take again. I think kind of having it was enough to relax me. So we had that, and Jill came and she picked up her kids, and Brian, my husband, must have come there at some point. I don't know. I got back home.
This wasn't after he had moved?
I don't know. Was he even living there at the time? I remember talking to him on the phone. I don't think I called him in Abu Dhabi.
You could have.
No, because you guys were in school still. He didn't leave till after you guys got out of school.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he was still home. So he must have met me there. Maybe he drove me home. Maybe my mom came and helped with the kids. I don't know. It's all fog. Anyway, the point is that happened. And then we went through the next few months with packing and getting ready. And I got in touch with people online. The kids got registered at this amazing school. And we ended up moving to the Middle East. So we moved there. It is now the end of August in 2011. Our youngest is a couple of weeks from turning 3. Alexander is he's almost 11. He's going into 5th grade. And then Bella was like 8.5, and she was going to be going into 3rd grade. Abu Dhabi is near Dubai, and it is in the Middle East. And
I don't know if
I don't think the camera goes up that high. So, and it is, I don't know, around 1 million degrees in the summertime.
More or less,
yeah. So we get there in August at the peak of heat time. And I remember
also like 95% humidity.
Oh my God. It's 'cause it's an island. Like you think desert, it's not dry desert. This is like an island. It is an island. And it's incredibly humid. And we got off the plane at 11:30 at night, and we have, kid you not, like a dozen bags. There's so much suitcases. Brian picks us up, and we roll out of the airport outside, and like you start dripping in sweat the second we get outside.
It was like 11 o'clock at night, wasn't it?
It's like 11 at night.
Yeah.
And it's so damn humid and so hot. And I was like, where the hell have you moved us to? So anyway, that's how that all started out. Abu Dhabi is the capital city in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. And there's like 1 million people or something there. So we lived in what was considered embassy housing. So we were in what was called a compound, which is what we would call here like a neighborhood. So our first place had about 40 of these great giant villas. Everything's really big there. Villas, and we had some embassy people there, and we had people that were Emiratis and people that were French and people who were Canadian and all these other people all around us. It is not like a compound where the school and the store and you're surrounded by Americans and that's how it is.
That's what it's like in like Saudi Arabia and some other Middle East.
Right, but not where we were in Abu Dhabi. So we ended up living there for 5 years. The kids all went to this school called American Community School of Abu Dhabi, and it was an amazing school. It's a private school. It was an American curriculum. There was 70% of the kids there were American. You would have a lot of kids that would have American passports, but they've never lived in America. Like the parents are from America, maybe the parents grew up here and then they ended up getting jobs overseas, and the kids were born overseas, and they might come back to visit in the summertime, but they could be seniors in high school having never lived in America, and then they end up usually going to college, in America. I was not expecting it to be as great of an experience as it was. I don't even know where to start when I talk about everything in Abu Dhabi. So everything, all the signs were in English.
Yeah.
Everybody spoke English. You had a lot of people that were bilingual or trilingual, quadlingual.
Yeah, my gosh. Do you remember this one time when we went to, I don't know if it was Muscat or it was some sort of desert safari type thing, and we met this family there where they had 2 younger kids, no older than 5 years old, and they were fluent in like English, Spanish, German, like 4 languages. They're 5 years old.
It was not uncommon meeting people that were living anywhere outside of America to be fluent in more than one or two languages. I found that a lot of times with the kids that were like more local kids or Lebanese, I had a lot of Lebanese friends that were there. They would be fluent in French and Arabic and English. Mm-hmm. Those ones were really common. But you would hear a lot of languages everywhere. So yeah, like I said, everything was super safe. I felt so safe. I felt safer
like
there.
The safest city in the world.
I felt safer there than I think I'll ever feel in America. You know, and as a woman, like you could go places at night. I could take a taxi by myself. I wasn't worried about things. There was crime was dealt with very swiftly. So do you remember when we were living there and there was this woman who was...
You're talking about the Australian woman, right?
The one that was... she killed somebody?
Shit. No, I do not.
Probably because you were young.
Yeah.
All right, so it was a random thing, like killed somebody in a bathroom with a knife because nobody has guns there except for the police. And not that I'm against guns. Anyhow, and so she killed somebody with a knife in like a bathroom. And they found this woman within hours of it happening. And because there's cameras everywhere in the city, so they could track her from cameras, not like in the bathroom, but at the mall, you know, in the parking garage, you know, the cameras down the streets or whatever to be able to track her. And then I think she might have ended up being put to death. And it's not like they stone people. It's not like that.
Was she a
It's
native?
not like you get your hands chopped off. She was local.
Okay.
I thought she was local.
Yeah.
So it's not like you get your hands chopped off for stealing. It's not like that. But things are dealt with very swiftly. So a lot of people who are living there are there on work visas. So there's people who are Filipino or Indonesian or Pakistani, and they might be coming there to work in the grocery stores or to work as maids or work as nannies, which is very common. And they would have a visa to be able to work there. And if they got caught with committing some kind of a crime, they lose their visa and they're deported out of the country. So people don't want to lose their job and lose some of what they have. So I find that people just follow the rules a lot.
Not that the rules were even strict. I mean, like, you know.
Well, there would be strict stuff. I knocked something down. There would be strict stuff about not speaking badly, I think, about the country. Kind of some of those.
I guess that's why I was thinking about that Australian woman that had posted something on social media.
Yeah, that was different.
I know, but she just got like deported right away. It was.
Yeah, so there are some things, you know, but otherwise, I felt
I feel like I could do whatever.
I felt really safe. I mean, Alex, I would let him Uber when he was, oh my gosh, like in middle school or something. Remember, I started to let you Uber with friends. I would totally not do that here in America.
I remember this one time. It was probably the first or second week we were there in Omaha, right? And
it's just the name of the compound we live in.
I don't know what the hell was going through my mind. Why I did this? Because I don't feel like I come across as a very like cocky, arrogant person, but for whatever reason,
I just don't even know where this is going.
I'm hanging out with all the new friends I just met. I think it was like Chris and Tyndall and Molly.
Oh, right, all the embassy kids.
And
yeah,
such
a great sense
Hannah
of
might have been her name.
There.
They were the local girls.
Yeah.
And this car, Zoom. I mean, the neighborhood was not very big. The street that the neighborhood was on was not very big.
Right. It's like going down an extra wide driveway or something. Yeah.
So this car comes like zooming across super fast. This young dude's driving it. I really don't know what was going through my mind, but I slapped the back of the car and I'm like, slow down, bro. I don't know what I said, but
Alex, you're like 11.
I know. And he like rolls his window and he's like, what are you doing? You do that to my car. What are you doing? And I'm just like, bro, like, slow down, bro. Because I'm like some 11-year-old kid. And he was pissed at me. Like,
for touching his car?
Yeah. But like, I was like, you slow down, bro. I don't know what was going through my mind.
The random things that you remember, right?
I remember just a lot of the stores we would go to where you could get dirt cheap, knockoff pirated movies and video games and all that stuff.
Yes.
They're always in just such weird malls. Like there's like Marina Mall, right?
There's like the beautiful malls that you've probably seen on TV, like the Dubai Mall, like the biggest mall in the world. You go in and there is every store you can possibly imagine. They'd have whole wings of things like Fendi and Louis Vuitton and all the high-end stuff. And then you would have Topshop and Zara and all of your basic JCPenney and Macy's type of, stores, and home stores. You'd have a grocery store in there. So they would just go on and on and on. There'd be a movie theater in the mall and maybe some
amusement park.
Yeah, there'd be like a amusement park, that one big arcade thing. There'd be some of the malls that would have, just the things that you could find there were unbelievable. Anything you could possibly think of. And then you'd have these other malls that were the older malls that were like probably more were like your locals, some of the local workers, people who weren't making as much money, might go there more. And they would also have a lot of black market stuff, knockoff watches and knockoff shoes and knockoff purses and
some really good corn.
Yeah, the corn was good. Yeah, they had little food truck things and then knockoff DVDs or you'd have people that would come to the neighborhood and open a suitcase. I don't know if they still have this kind of thing because now we're talking almost 10 years ago. Open the suitcase up and they would have like tons and tons of DVDs you just buy for $1, and like totally seems like the kind of thing somebody filmed in a movie theater level of stuff to things that seemed totally fine, and for $1, like you never know what you were gonna get. Yeah. But yeah, so I do remember some of that stuff.
I do like how cheap things were, at least from my perspective as a kid buying things.
Yeah, like buying chips
food
and candy
and anything that I would consume at that age was like dirt cheap, which was nice because I couldn't get a job. Every job that you see anywhere, anyone aged like 15 to 20, 21 working in the U.S. were occupied by Filipinos and Indians and
Pakistani and East Asians. Yeah, so that's true. So he might have this perspective where he could go to the corner market like a 7-Eleven kind of thing.
Yeah, okay, so I would go to Bakla. I would go to Shaheen Supermarket every day. It was more like my freshman year because last year I was there, like 8th grade and 9th grade. Be a group of like 10 to 15 to us. We'd go across the street from campus because that's where Ethan R lived, and we'd all just pile into his apartment and play video games like every day after school for 1 or 2 hours. And we'd always go to Shaheen Supermarket and then go to the shawarma place. The shawarma people were so nice to us. Apparently they've like really expanded. They've gotten a lot bigger, like talking to some people who were there, which is awesome because we literally gave them all their business, I feel like. But stuff was dirt cheap. We'd go to the supermarket every day after school. We'd get a drink, like a bottle of soda and chips, and it's the equivalent of literally less than $1. It was 2 dirham for a bottle, 500 milliliter bottle of soda, which is not even $1.
Yeah.
Right? And then get chips or a candy bar. I used to steal so much from that.
Alexander.
I can get to that another time. But we would get stuff from there, dirt cheap, and then we'd go to the shawarma place and get a full like lunch, like shawarma and fries and a drink and all of that. Like a lunch and snacks would cost, I'd spend no more than $2 a day.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
$2 to $3. Like 10 dirham.
So that's like kid shopping, and right? Like that's the kind of stuff that you would shop
and do. I ran a monopoly on those sugar straws.
Oh my gosh, I remember that in middle school.
Sour straws.
Yes.
The principals at that school hated me for that shit, and I don't know why, because I had no way to make money. It was your
start of entrepreneurialism.
I had no way to make money, but I made so much money off of that.
Because there was no drugs there, so Alex would sell candy out of his backpack at school.
Are you implying I sell drugs?
No, I'm saying like a drug dealer might make money in high school, like selling money 100%. Underneath the bleachers. So, you're like selling candy.
So these sour straws, right? They were.
Do you even see them here?
No.
Huh.
They were a dirham 50 each, $1.50 each, let's say, and
a dirham 50, literally, that's like 40 something cents.
Yeah. And a box of them was 24, and you get it for 36 dirham.
Talk into the microphone. Yeah.
Talk into the microphone.
There you go.
And you could get a box of them for 36 dirham. So I'd go, the Shaheen Supermarket across the street sometimes would have it, sometimes wouldn't. But our campus was a closed campus, right? So you couldn't leave to get lunch, couldn't leave to do anything once you're there. So I'd go to the Bakala, which is a 7-Eleven grocery store, convenience store, right across from our house. Maybe once. Well, I'd go there almost every day, but in order to, restock, go there like once a week maybe when it came to restocking. And I'd spend maybe 72 dirham to get about 50 of these straws, right? And at first, I was telling them like 1 for 5. It took a while for people to realize, wow, I'm getting really ripped off for this. But you look at that, it was like 48 technically, so it'd be 240 dirhams worth of revenue I'm making, and I'd spend 72 to get that. I'd make 150, 160, which is the equivalent of like $40 over the course of, I would sell out so fast. It'd be like 2 to 3 days. Like I could make $50 profit in a week, if not more than that, from like just selling.
Okay,
these
so what
straws
did
to
you do
kids.
with all your money?
Bought food.
Okay.
And go to the movies and do all the other stuff.
Okay.
Right? Because, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was years ago.
You
but,
donated some to charity? Because I remember when your teacher told me about that.
yeah, that was cool. I donated a whole bunch of charity. I like balled out like a little mini philanthropist in 6th grade, walking up, dropped
I had no idea.
100 dirham in the thing. I was like, go get a fucking smile.
Alexander, it was like a cleft.
It was for
charity
Operation
thing.
Smile.
No, I remember your teacher. So Mr. Lindsay, who was awesome.
Oh my God, one of my favorite
He
teachers.
was a 6th grade teacher. And I remember him telling me once that you were donating money to charity. And I was like, what do you mean he's donating money? I had no idea. Not something he would have ever told me. So
No.
that was cool. So you're not spending a lot of money to get the things that you would need. But I know for us, so we used to go out a lot. We were very, very social there. And it was just this amazing.
As adults, I don't know what I did as a kid. We'd Uber, watch movies, and I don't know.
You hung out with people
Yeah,
all the time.
we did.
And
We
same
did.
with your sister. You were very social in
Yeah.
that regard. You guys had so many friends that you hung out with on a very regular basis. And Dad and I had friends from all these different areas. It was a very close-knit community. So I was amazed when I moved there just how many Americans there were. I think at the time, prior to moving there, when I thought of people living overseas, I thought of all the people in the military overseas. And I don't know, I guess I didn't really give it as much thought beyond that. And so going there, the embassy probably had 300 and something people working there, and a lot of them had families. And then a lot of the people that I knew who went to the American school, they weren't connected with the embassy. They might be with one of the large oil companies.
Or Cleveland Clinic.
Or Cleveland Clinic, which was a big, really nice hospital
then,
there. Or they would be in finance
Or
or
teachers.
having to do with building or teachers. So many of the teachers there were American or Canadian. They came from all over. We actually had teachers from other
And I guess
places.
you wouldn't have connected with like these parents as much as I did with their kids, because there are a lot of embassy kids that went to this school, but not necessarily U.S. embassy kids. Like I was
Right.
I was friends with like the Swedish ambassador's son and the South Korean ambassador's son and kids from all over the world.
I dealt with a
parents
lot
were
of
the
those.
ambassadors.
I ended up working there. So the first year I was there, it was just this adjustment period, and Cameron was little. The kids were younger. He was at home. I was trying to figure things out and trying to find play groups or, being an expat wife, which was
You
kind
wrote a
of
little
awesome.
blog like twice.
What'd you say?
You wrote a little blog. Like
I did
2
write
or
a
3
blog for a
times.
little bit, and then we decided to get a nanny, which was super common there. So we had a live-in nanny/maid Elnor, and she was awesome.
Dude,
Might be the
she
biggest
made
thing I
such
missed
good
from back
fried
then.
chicken.
And I never had to do laundry, so we had her for 4.5 years.
You didn't have to do anything.
I didn't. My house was clean all the time. Like she was constantly cleaning it. She would mop the floors like multiple times a day. She would iron my sheets and iron my clothes and just everything. That's just what she did. We paid her well. We flew her home to see her family once a year. We paid for her health insurance, and she was awesome. She spoke English fine. I'm still in touch with her, actually. Oh my gosh. She was great. Like entertaining people. The kitchen was just clean all the time because she'd be cleaning it as things were happening. Or if I'm baking a bunch of Christmas cookies, and yeah, so all that was great. So after the first year, I decided to go back to work, and I worked at the school. So I worked as an assistant to the athletics director. Ended up assisting 2 different directors, and I loved my job. And it gave me a chance to get to know the kids really well and the school and the environment. But earlier I was talking about what a great sense of community everything is. So we had a lot of embassy friends. So you had people that worked for the State Department that might be in Abu Dhabi for a couple of years. Then they'd go work at another embassy in another country for a couple of years, maybe in DC, maybe at another embassy, and kind of bounce around. And then we had friends of ours connected with the school. So there'd be some people that would only be there for a year or 2. You'd have other people who lived there for 10 or 15 years. It just depended. So it seemed like because so many people would come in and out, as very transient community, that you became friends with people very, very quickly. And it was very tight. And so that part was absolutely awesome. Our school had a great great sense of community, which was really nice. And it started to feel, after not very long, that where we lived was small. Here I was coming from Ferndale, which now has maybe 12 to 14,000, and when we left had about 8,500. And that feels like a small community. You go to the grocery store, you go to the bank, you go to the post office, or wherever you go, and you're always running into somebody. It didn't take long for it to feel like that in Abu Dhabi. There's kind of regular places that the expats would go, certain grocery stores, one was called Spinneys, that would have a lot of the imported groceries. And I would always run into somebody from ACS there, or if I, went to the movie theater, or you go to the mall or things like that. Alex was talking about how cheap it was for him living there. I thought it was crazy expensive. So even though we were there at the embassy, we didn't have to pay for our housing or for our utility bills. We'd pay for cell phones, of course. And I had my own car there, and I had to pay for that. But everything else was kind of on our own. And the school was free, except for stuff that was over and above. The kids did these trips we had to pay for, and they had laptops starting in 6th grade we had to pay for. But the tuition at the school we didn't have to pay for. All the entertainment and
tuition there probably costs as much as my college costs right now.
Yeah, I think it's something. It was like 70,000 dirhams or something like that a year. It was expensive, and going out and doing things was expensive. Yeah. So we would go out like for drinks or going out with friends and stuff, and you wouldn't think anything to spend 30 dirham on a drink, which would be like $10, So you could hit happy hours. You'd have these amazing brunches that would just last all day, and it would be unlimited champagne, and not brunches like you go to here. Like if you went to a nice Mother's Day brunch at a hotel, and there's maybe like one room, and you've got a couple of things, whatever. There it'd be multiple rooms. You'd go to a brunch, and you would have a whole area of sushi and crab legs and lobster and who knows what seafood, and another area would be pasta with every imaginable kind of pasta and sauce, and another area would be carving stations with multiple meat, and another area
super rich country, like
on and on and on.
Police cars or Ferraris, like
everything was very. You'd have very fancy stuff, so you'd have this extreme there. It was very common to see really fancy cars. You wouldn't see any like old beaters with primer on them. You wouldn't see cars that were old. It'd be common to see lots of Porsches and Bentleys and Ferraris and Rolls Royces just on a daily basis all over. Certain hotels would have lots of fancy cars, parked. Just about every local woman, a lot of other women would have name brand purses and fancy shoes
Louis Vuitton and Gucci.
And it was very big on, especially for a lot of locals with having really nice hair, and you'd see a lot of people that clearly had plastic surgery, different nationalities. You start to learn. I could identify different nationalities better from living over there, where beforehand I would probably lump together a lot of different ones, just not knowing.
So you became not racist living there.
Yeah. Well, like after living there, I could say like that's an Egyptian person versus that's a Lebanese person versus that's Jordanian. Yeah. I just would know, looking at people or talking to people. And I became so much more open-minded. We traveled a bunch. So we never had a passport. I never had a passport. Kids didn't have passports till we moved there. And then after we got there, we did some amazing overseas vacations. And the school that we were at was really, really big on service. And so when the kids got into high school, they had opportunities to do service trips. So they would be through Habitat for Humanity or through something else where they might be doing some kind of service in the area they were going to. We were tied into an orphanage in Nepal. So we always sent groups there twice a year during spring break and during Eid, which was usually, it moves. But it was another time where we would have a vacation time and time off of school. And so I chaperoned a trip to Romania for Habitat for Humanity. I chaperoned a trip to Tanzania where we helped to build a mud house for a woman. Not the same trip you went on.
No, but I never knew you went to Africa. I always thought you...
I went to Tanzania the year before you did.
Really?
And I did Romania for Habitat, and I went to Nepal twice to help at the orphanage and trek in the Himalayas. So that was an amazing opportunity. And then the kids, when they were in middle school, there was this thing called Week Without Walls at our school. And the idea is that they spend their time at school learning about an area, learning about something. Then they have a week beyond the walls to actually see and live and be around what it is they've learned about.
Yeah.
So, Alex, do you remember in 6th grade where you went?
Yeah. So it changed the year after I left middle school. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for the longest time was always you go to Turkey, you go to Thailand. And then I guess for Bella or whatever, they did Italy, Greece, Thailand or something like that.
Well, it changed because there started to be some strife and some
Turkey.
things going on.
But first year was Ephesus and that area in Turkey, which we had gone to the year before with the cruise, I think. Or maybe
we went the year after, I think.
No, I think it was before.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
And we did speeches at the specific historic landmarks, whatever we had to research, because it changed for every kid. And then 7th grade, we went to Cappadocia, which is another region in Turkey. I liked that probably more than 6th grade. We did a little more research on stuff, some historical projects we did, but it was pretty simple. It wasn't super knowledge and educational based per se. Both trips, it was more Week Without Walls. It was a fun experience for everyone. And I just remember there being this really good cheese bread thing I ate there. And then 8th grade.
You tie a lot of stuff to food.
What can I say?
I know.
And 8th grade was Thailand, and that was not educational whatsoever. There was no research.
What was some
it
wasn't educational in that way.
It was right. It was just
because you learned how to cook and
stuff
when you were there. It was in Chiang Mai.
We made Chiang Mai, and
they didn't have education.
My friend got molested on an elephant, and we went zip lining.
What are you talking about?
On an elephant?
Molested on an elephant. What the actual hell? Don't share this story. Wait, I want to know what happened.
I was on an elephant.
Is it really bad?
Not really bad, but
Alex, did you tell your teacher? Okay, let me hear what happened.
It wasn't molested.
Don't throw that word around.
I threw it around. So we're on the elephant, and they have the little sticks they poke the elephant with or whatever. Not slap him, but just kind of I don't know. Have you ever rode an elephant?
No, I've ridden a camel.
Same. So they have little sticks, things little whip type things. I don't know. And we're on this elephant going in the water and just taking a tour on the elephant. And the person who was the navigator, I guess, I don't know what you would call them.
Okay.
Who kind of leads the elephant.
The guide?
In front of us, the guide, yeah.
Okay.
He takes his stick and he swats it around I won't name the friend I was sitting on the elephant with around his crotch, and we just look at him bro, what?
Or was he?
And he's some Thai dude, and he looks at his Thai friend and he's like, Alex,
and they're don't talk like that.
I know how to speak Thai, Mom.
I don't know if that's what it is. Anyway, go on. Stop.
Learned a song about elephants.
Okay.
And anyways, and he does it again. And he's talking Thai with his friend or whatever. And me and my friend just look at each other what the hell just happened?
So we didn't really touch him.
Yeah, but he
just flicked the thing and the.
A couple times he was messing around. I was what the frick is going on? It was funny.
Maybe not as bad as what you're saying. And this is your 13-year-old memory.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That was funny.
So, and then for Bella, when she was in 6th grade, they were going to go to Turkey. Then some things had happened in that area, so they changed. And they ended up going to Athens. Was that in 6th grade? They went to Athens. So they would study the Acropolis, and then they would go take this trip to Athens, and then you're standing before the Acropolis doing a presentation. And when she was in 7th grade, they went to Sicily. So they're doing studies about Vesuvius in Sicily.
Bro, I don't remember.
Oh my gosh. So they would do studies about something, then you go there and you're in front of the thing you just learned all about doing a presentation. How awesome was that? So these kids had these experiences that they never in a million years would have. We were able to take them and do vacations to Jordan for a week, which was incredible and one of the best vacations we did. And we did some time we did a Mediterranean cruise and visited a bunch of places in Europe and Baltic Seas where we went to Russia and Estonia and stuff. But in Abu Dhabi, we were surrounded by so many people who had so much experience with travel. We would have friends that would travel somewhere during the Christmas holiday, during Eid, during spring break, go somewhere different every time. And even now, because I'm in touch with so many people, I have friends that are just spread out all over the world. You want to go somewhere and there's somebody I could reach out to that has been there and could share experiences about it. And it made the idea of traveling not so scary and very doable, and that part was really cool. We had friends who'd lived overseas for a long time. A lot of my friends who are teachers, they maybe taught for a year or two in the States. Then they got on international teaching. So they would teach at a school for a couple of years. It could be 2, it could be, 5 or 6, but they teach for a few years at a school, and then they would go teach at another school for a few years and teach at another school. And if you were at an American school, sometimes you had really good packages where they're flying you back home once a year and they're paying for your child to be able to go to that school. And we had so much support at that school. Our tech department at that school was a tech director and multiple people. There was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 people in the tech department because everybody had laptops at the school. Everything was connected. We had Google Classroom, and it just was a very different experience in that regard. We had kids that came out of that school. I think 98% of them went to college. It was an IB school, which is a 2-year international baccalaureate program. Not as common here in the States as it is in Europe, but some people are familiar with it. And we have AP, for example, at the school that my kids go to. There it was IB was, the things they did. Anyhow, and so these kids were getting this amazing education, and so many of them come back and go to the States for college, actually. And Alex ended up, so he's going to Chapman down in Southern California, not a gigantic school. And you have how many kids that graduated from ACS there in the same year? Like 4 or 5?
Like 3.
Is that just you?
2 maybe.
You, Elif,
Elif,
Jonda.
and Jonda.
Oh, and Saif, who was
And
there
Saif
from
the
before.
Oh, and Layla.
And Layla. So that's like 5 kids. So, and a lot of kids end up on the East Coast. And it's nice for my kids to be able to still be in touch. But our experience actually living in Abu Dhabi, it was, I don't know. It was great. You got very comfortable very quickly with all the little things. Like, let's go to the movies, and you might spend a little bit more to go to the movie theater, and you have a heated blanket, and you could order food, to be delivered. I belonged to a beach club with some of my friends, and when I wasn't working, it was great. I could go in the daytime, and when I was working, you could go there afterwards, and they'd have a swim up bar, and we'd sit there, under the sun, along the Corniche and the water, and there was a lot of things where you could do day passes to all of these clubs. It was like vacation living, all the time, like at your access. And then you could go out into the desert for desert safaris or camping in the desert.
It is so cold in the desert.
At nighttime.
It is freezing.
Yeah, I tried camping once. I'm not a camper. And Bella and I ended up sleeping in the car.
I remember that I woke up and it's just me and Dad in the tent, and I'm like, bro, what? Yeah.
But the camping in the desert part where you're hanging out with friends in the daytime part of it is awesome.
And I remember we did the other stuff in the desert where they cooked the meat like in the sand or whatever. That was really good. And the Jordanian tea. It had a lot of sugar in it, I could tell, but it was good.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of food there that I miss. I miss shawarma, which I can't find here cooked the same way. It would be like you'd have this big spit, and it would be chicken or beef, and it would be like packed on top of each other. And they put, I don't know, some seasoning stuff would drip, and the thing turns like this, and they shave it off to have all these like shaved bits in a kind of a pita with different sauces. It would be served in different ways in different places. So that, and the Lebanese food was amazing. They're very big on their sweets there. So you would go places and there would be lots of sweets, high rate of diabetes there, and lots of nuts. And having 2 boys with severe nut allergies. So and a lot of their desserts would have pistachios or, things like that crumbled on top of it. But I found that the people there were very nice. Emirati people are all very nice. I never felt, scared or nervous or anything like that. I think living overseas, it just gave me a chance to get to learn about lots of other cultures, and it helped to relax me in general because there's so much I couldn't control living there. There's a phrase they say in a phrase over there that's inshallah, which means God willing, and you would hear it on a daily basis. So you would talk about something, I don't know, it could be anything dealing with school or your day-to-day life. Like, when is that package going to come? Inshallah. When are we going to find out about that visa to go to India? Inshallah. When is this? It just means, who knows? And God willing, it'll happen. Whenever. Inshallah. So you just become relaxed once you accept that there's things you just can't control. And that was important for me, What do you think your favorite part of living overseas was?
I don't know.
What do you miss?
A lot of it.
Yeah?
I mean, yeah. But it was a different it was like my adolescence, really. It was like all middle school. That year of elementary school, the first year of high school, and then middle school. So it was just a different time of life for me, I guess. Because I mean, like, as you grow up developmentally, a lot happens within the first 18 years or so, and then as you get older, it's kind of your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, and it's all kind of lumped together more. Whereas as a young kid, it's a lot is spaced together in a shorter period of time, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I don't know, I became a way more open-minded person. Not that I felt that I was too close-minded moving there at like 11.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely know I'm a completely different person than I would have been if we stayed in a
For the
small
better,
town.
don't you think?
Well, yeah, for the better, for sure. If we just stayed in a small
I
town
think
for 18 years.
Moving back to the States was way harder than moving to Abu Dhabi in the first place.
That was easy, for me at least.
But there was less you had to worry about maybe as a kid.
It sucked for Bella.
Bella had a really hard time. So my kids had always been in private school. And for Bella, she did Montessori, and then she went to a Catholic school here. And then we moved overseas, and she was in this private school. So when she moved back here in 8th grade, it was her first time going into a public school.
Same. And I was in 10th grade.
And you were in 10th grade. But you knew kids, because you were a little bit older when we moved there. When we would come back, there were some kids you could connect with.
Yeah.
And the sports and stuff you did when you lived here before, there were kids that you could, connect with. But for her, she was so young. There was no social media where she was keeping in touch with people in 3rd grade when we moved to Abu Dhabi.
I'm hungry. What time is it?
Really? Yeah, I'm a little hungry. It's 6. How long have we been talking for?
A long time.
You can look on that. But yeah, so it was really hard for her moving back. And it was an adjustment for me moving back. And I really missed the school, and I missed the community, and I missed my friends, but I came back here to friends. So I don't know, I could go on. There's so many other things I could talk about with that. But if you ever have the opportunity to live overseas, don't be scared of it. Totally jump on it.
Do it.
Do it. That's all.
Do it.
I'm hungry.
I am hungry.
Let's go eat.
Let's go eat.
All right.